This is UNAIDS.
Hello. Thank you to the organizers, Trust Africa, the American University in Cairo, and all the other organizers. Representative of the government of Egypt, Your Excellency, the former Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Osinbajo, current and former government officials present here, members of the philanthropy community, civil society leaders, it is a great honor to speak to you today. I'll talk about three things: the crisis in multilateralism, how the nature of global solidarity is changing, and thirdly, how African philanthropy can be a catalyst for positive change. I do not need to tell you, distinguished participants, that the crisis of multilateralism is not an abstract or academic issue. It is felt in the loss of human life, so much of it on our own continent, Africa. In the fight that I am in, the fight against AIDS, we now face losing the United States Bilateral Program on AIDS, PEPFAR. It's the largest AIDS program in the world. Without it, we could see an additional 6 million new HIV infections and 4 million AIDS-related deaths by 2029. Meanwhile, a global backlash against human rights and gender equality is pushing the communities that are most impacted by HIV to the margins, facing increasingly punitive laws, stigma and discrimination, all of which undermine their access to life-saving services. Powerful member states look away as children starve, clinics are bombed, and mothers are killed while queuing for food in Gaza. The United Nations, which I serve, is unable to stop these crimes against humanity. We are roasting our planet. The rich billionaires and their corporations are fueling the fire, with the richest 1% responsible for more than twice as much carbon pollution as the poorest half of humanity. And the world is failing to reach binding agreements to reduce carbon emissions. We are moving toward climate catastrophe, and we are unable to agree, let alone enforce. But you're not just here to diagnose the problem. You're here to ask urgent questions about justice, power, and the future of global collaboration, multilateralism. Indeed, you're here to ask, is multilateralism still fit for purpose? And if not, what can the global South, especially Africa, do to reshape it? In my view, multilateralism is not dead, but it is broken. And those who feel the cracks most acutely are best positioned to lead its repair. Africa must lead the charge, not only because it is the weakest link in the multilateral system, but because solidarity is at the core of who we are. Solidarity is not new to us. Ubuntu underpins our societies, from the grandmothers raising orphaned children to the youth movements. I see crowdsourcing funds for legal bail of activists, to the emerging African philanthropic and regional institutions. Ubuntu. I am because you are. This is a concept at the heart of African cultures. Distinguished participants, the nature of global solidarity is changing. Across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, we are seeing stronger and new efforts at regional cooperation. For example, the role of Africa CDC during the COVID-19 pandemic was nothing short of inspirational. We see this also in the ambitious effort to build the African Continental Free Trade Area. We see Africa taking the lead in forums long monopolized by the Global North, with South Africa's presidency of the G20 and the African Union taking up its permanent seat at the G20 table. But more than that, we are seeing Global South nations offer breakthroughs, from green industrial policy to gender equality, on their own terms. This is about rewriting the rules of engagement based on mutual benefit, respect, and reciprocity. Middle-income countries are stepping up bilateral South-South cooperation, which is very welcome. This often comes in different forms than the traditional Western aid model. The rise of the Global South is not anti-West, it is pro-autonomy. And yet, here I must offer a word of caution. Different doesn't always mean better. If it is underpinned by the same extractive, exploitative business model as the old system, if these new forms of collaboration do not advance human rights and social justice, then they will not deliver. We must not simply repair what is broken to go back to what we had before. We must imagine anew. In this crisis, we must seize our own sovereignty. And I can't help but see every African's role in this effort. That includes you who are the fore of innovation and social and economic transformation, our African philanthropic institutions. Philanthropy, in my view, is the catalyst that can propel us toward a sustainable global human economy and a rules-based world where everyone can live in dignity and in peace. Global problems need global solutions, from extreme inequality, climate crisis, conflict, and humanitarian crisis to choking debt and crumbling public services. You, as thinkers, as innovators, as philanthropists, you have a role to play in building a more just and inclusive multilateralism through which we can tackle these urgent global challenges. So much is at stake for Africa. By 2030, given current trends, Africans will make up over 80% of the world's poor. And yet we also have incredible opportunities with a young and growing population that can be a driver of global growth. But the current rules of the global economy are skewed against Africa. Even before the latest cuts to ODA, more money was flowing out of Africa than in. Take, for example, in 2023, Africa lost an estimated $88 billion to illicit financial flows, mostly through tax abuse. This is from UNCTAD. Africa received $74 billion in aid, ODA, and Africa in the same year paid back $102 billion in debt servicing, both on principal and interest. Do the math. You will see that for every $1 that Africa received, $2 were flowing out, a perverse flow. Meanwhile, 2 in 3 African countries are spending more on debt repayments than on health care of their people. Clearly, African leaders, including you in philanthropy, must be front and center in the struggle to unrig the global economy. This is a struggle in which you have a vital role to play as philanthropists, supporting Africa to create, to advocate for new rules in order to unlock the resources that we need for our own development. Now let me conclude by proposing global public investment. This is an idea that has been around for some time, but whose moment, I believe, has come. It offers a way to move from an outdated, paternalistic, and ineffective aid paradigm to a new model of global collaboration and collective responsibility. A model where all countries contribute according to their ability, not these outdated classifications, where all countries benefit with investments in shared global goods and needs, where all countries decide through transparent, inclusive, democratic governance. This model would shift us from an ineffective and unequal dynamic of aid to a more equitable system where everyone contributes and everyone has a stake. It is a reflection of Ubuntu, and I urge you as philanthropists, as governments, as activists, to start the work of building it. We are watching the old system of global cooperation collapse all around us. Something new must take its place. On whose terms will that be? Who will that future benefit? As Africa, we must not wait to be included. We must build it on our own terms, in our own voice, and with our own values. You, the distinguished people gathered at this conference, you have the experience, you have the understanding, and you have the answers. Now we must get to work. Thank you so much.